Hey, good afternoon, good morning, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well, having a nice Saturday. My name is Doc V, meteorologist. I'm joined by my colleague and friend, meteorologist Sean Bratton, and we're the fantasy football weather guys, where we're quantifying the weather risks in sports. Sean, good morning. We got a great set of games here. We're in NFL playoffs, the first week of playoffs, man. It's exciting. We've been waiting a while for this. How's it going, man?
Wild card playoff week. I mean, this is the best time of year when we get into the playoffs, and we're looking at the underdogs and teams we're rooting for. For me personally, which is a game we're going to be talking about today, is Buffalo. I'm rooting for Buffalo here to make it to hopefully the Super Bowl. But we do have some good games and some good teams in this year.
Yeah, as a Jets fan, I'm totally on board with rooting for Buffalo, but I'm interested to see how Mac Jones and the Patriots can kind of snake their way through the playoffs this year. Let's see if Belichick actually has that magic, or if they really need the magic of Tom Brady. It'll be fun to watch. But I do have to say the Patriots have impressed me this year.
Yeah,
they've done a good job compared to last year. So
they have. I think everyone's kind of hoping in the back of their minds that New England Tampa Bay Super Bowl, where you have kind of the new and the old era kind of coming together. I'll be honest, I mean, I'm not super happy with either of those teams, but I would like to see that Super Bowl.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so let's kick it off here. Let's talk about our upcoming set of games here. I'm going to share my screen and show off our beautiful weather impact table here. This is on our website at FFWeatherguys.com. And this is a place where you can hit the weather impact table. You can come here and see the live up-to-date forecast for the set of 3 or 4 hours of game time for each of these NFL games per week. We have 3 different weather parameters that show up on this table. We have temperature, we have wind, we have precipitation, as well as the starting lineups for these games here. These weather forecasts are powered by the National Weather Service. So the first game you can see on here is the thing that stands out to the most here is this red bar across the New England at Buffalo Bills game, and that red bar here on the table means that there's some form of extreme weather that is going to manifest, right? It could be in the form of wind, precipitation, or temperature. And Sean, what is specifically the thing that's alerting our algorithm here for this particular game?
Yeah, this is going to be a really cold game. It's not going to have much wind associated with it, and definitely no precipitation. But what we're really focusing in on this game is the temperature and the temperature alone. We're talking about temps in the single digits. Right now, our forecast has 7 there. Yeah, we're forecasting between probably 5 and 8 degrees. Wind chills, even though the wind is light, even with a little bit of wind, we could have sub-zero wind chills in this one. So it's going to be a cold the New England Buffalo game tonight.
And the other game that we're going to be focusing on just a little bit here, this is lesser of an impact. It's not shaded orange or green, but as meteorologists, we see this game, and it does concern us a little bit, and that's the Philadelphia Eagles at Tampa Bay Buccaneers. There's some scattered showers for this game, but the thing that we're most concerned about are the winds that are greater than 15 miles per hour. And we are seeing some gusts a bit higher than that, so we'll focus that in a little while here. But before that, let's do a quick synoptic breakdown, talk about the pattern, what's happening this weekend. And the way that we're going to do that is through this Weather Tools tab here. And we'll move to that really quickly. Before I get to that, just wanted to mention all other games here this weekend we're not really concerned about. You can even see this Arizona-Los Angeles Rams game. There is a chance for some scattered showers, but it's extremely light precipitation, a hundredth of an inch of rain. So nothing significant there. We're not expecting any impact. So let's focus more on these other 2 games here. The Buffalo Bills, Patriots, and the Eagles at Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So first thing I'm going to switch off to is the Eastern U.S. precipitation and sea level pressure map. And Sean, do you want to talk about what's going on here for this particular next couple days here?
Yeah, and this is actually the big story here, which I kind of was more part of our forecast, but we have a really strong winter storm that's going to be developing, and Mike is showing more or less current what the model is projecting. And what you want to look at there is that blob in the middle of the screen. And that's our future winter storm. It's going to push south over the Tennessee River Valley. It's going to go through some rapid intensification. It's going to plunge all the way south over the southeastern seaboard, and then it's going to move north and east. So one of the features I want to point out here, Mike, if you could go back, if you notice kind of draping through Florida there, that's going to be some sort of front. And so that's the feature that we're going to be watching in relation to the Tampa Bay and the Eagles game. The timing of that front is going to be really important, and then the winds associated with that front are really going to be important. But now, as this is occurring, subsequently, we have a pretty strong high-pressure system north and east of the Great Lakes, and that's going to be funneling in some really cold air to the eastern U.S., including Buffalo. So that's going to be funneling in that really cold air. We're not anticipating, again, really winds or precipitation, just really cold temperatures.
Yeah, this is a really awesome setup here for wintry weather here across the eastern seaboard. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like this high pressure is going to stay or is going to funnel enough cold air into the northeast in this storm track for this particular storm as we move out. This is for selfish reasons, not in football reasons for my part, but as you move out forward in the forecast, this storm actually takes more of an inland track up the northeastern seaboard. And this spells rain risks for me in southern New England, but maybe more of a significant snow event for upstate New York. But we're not expecting that for football games, as Sean mentioned today. For the New England Patriots at Buffalo Bills game, there's this Arctic high pressure in the northeast with some significant cold, single-digit temperatures expected during game time. And then we're watching this particular storm here in Florida with regards to some showers, but more specifically, if we go over to the eastern U.S. wind map, and we bring that up to speed here for the time where the actual Eagles will be playing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers here, 1 p.m. This is the wind forecast, and you can see how there's a lot of orange and red shadings over both the northeastern Gulf of Mexico as well as the western Atlantic here. But these are strong westerly winds coming in onshore to the Tampa Bay region for Sunday afternoon, and that is when the Eagles will be playing the Bucs. But we'll get to that game next. I really want to focus more specifically on the Buffalo Bills game here, and I'm just going to bring up our forecast, and we're going to start breaking this game down here with the analytics. Just wanted to say that the Vegas over-under line here is 44 points. The Bills are favored by 4.5 points. This is actually the first home playoff game for the Bills since 1996 with a full capacity, right? Last year they hosted 2 games, but there were COVID restrictions. So they didn't allow for a full stadium. So now we're going to see Buffalo raging here in the cold weather, 5 degrees, man. If you're a fan out and you're planning on tailgating out here, make sure you bring some portable heaters. You probably won't need coolers because your beer is going to freeze in your bottle. So I would definitely recommend bringing some kind of warm liquid, maybe some like hot cocoa and maybe some rum or something. But it's going to be freezing out there. So
they'll probably have some different liquid out there, Mike. But regardless,
yeah,
I mean, these Buffalo fans, they know how to throw tailgates. And they know how to root for their team. So I do anticipate, even with the cold temperatures, there will be plenty of tailgaters out there celebrating this wild card game.
Yeah, of course, you got to be. It's an exciting time because when do you have a really good opportunity to just eliminate the New England Patriots in playoffs? It's just they didn't make it to the playoffs last year, but when was the last time they were eliminated? It's far and few in between from my memory, just as a Jets fan living in New England. But so anyway, this will be the coldest games in their respective careers for Josh Allen and Mac Jones. So they have not played in temperatures this cold before. So Sean, the big question that we're going to talk about today is how does this cold weather impact the game flow and productivity of these players in tonight's game?
Yeah, Mike, you kind of brought up a good point here in that we don't have any specific metrics on this cold. So when we hear people talk about, when Josh Allen has played in cold temperatures, and they're referring to cold temperatures in the 30s, maybe 40s, that's not really cold enough. I mean, even statistically speaking, when we do look at QBs in 30, 40 degrees, there isn't a lot of shift in their performance, meaning weather doesn't really have an impact. It's not really until we get 20 degrees or below, and in this case, we're going to be in the single digits. But what we do have historically is we do show that QBs, their potential to break out in these really cold games, I'm talking like 15 degrees, 20 degrees or lower, is capped. Just on average, if we look at this from a fantasy points perspective, a QB efficiency or QBR perspective, they're not doing as well in these really, really, really cold games. And typically, they're also lower scoring games. And actually on the blog, I'm going to post a graphic showing what this average looks like for really cold games versus our control games, which are usually in domes. And there's about a 6-point difference between these control games and games that are played in temperatures that are really cold. Not just cold like 30 degrees. We're talking about 5, 10, 15 degrees. So I think that the messaging here is that the probability of this being a game like we saw last time where it was 33-21 and Buffalo won that game, I don't anticipate 50, 60 points being scored in this one. I think the potential for that to happen is reduced with these cold temperatures, and that's what we've seen statistically. So then the question is, well, okay, well, what about Josh Allen specifically and Mac Jones? I think Josh Allen's going to give you an okay baseline. I think he's going to have attempts. I think he's going to get you some rushing yards. But in what we have seen in him play in any type of cold conditions, those stats have been stunted a little bit. So I do have some concerns about his efficiency, especially in these temperatures that he's never played in before. And against a Patriots, a very strong Patriots defense that's ranked number 2 against QBs this year. So I think we need to cap expectations. That's my viewpoint. I think Mike has a slightly different viewpoint.
Well, no, Sean, I agree completely with the upside of these players here is reduced. And I think that's mainly a result of how good these defenses are, rather than how cold the temperatures will be. I saw an article from Boston.com talking about Josh Allen and how he does not play well in cold weather games. And I wanted to look a little bit further into that article. Specifically, the author talked about how Josh Allen has performed this year and showed statistics in how Josh Allen performed this year in cold weather games, and how it's been really not great. But then he goes on to say throughout his career, he's actually done pretty well. So the one thing I want to point out here, this year Josh Allen has played in 5 cold weather games. And the way that this Boston.com author identified cold weather games was temperatures less than 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Josh Allen has played in 5 games of that so far this year. However, there has been games I think there's been 3 games of those 5 games where there were winds greater than 15 miles per hour. One was actually the big wind game, the Wind Bowl, where the Patriots and Buffalo played in 30 mile per hour sustained winds, where there was barely any production. I think Josh Allen had a QBR of 17 in that game with 145 yards. So what I did here was I went and I looked at how Allen performed in these 5 cold weather games where there was wind and where there wasn't wind. And where there wasn't wind, Allen's QBR was 65. Where there was wind, it drops down to 45. So you see a significant deviation. It's still pretty low compared to his means, right? But the wind was a severe impact. It actually added a layer of stress on Allen where he did not perform. You see the same signal in the yards where there were games where there were strong winds this year. Allen threw an average of 165 yards per game. Where there wasn't wind with cold weather, it was up to 260, which is above his career average. So, I think here that there's a lot of overhyping the cold here in New England for the Buffalo Bills New England game, in the sense that these games if we're expecting maybe points to be sub 30 points here, I just don't think that's going to happen without wind. You need that strong wind to really kind of drive those real low scoring type of games. Where this game, we're just looking at cold temperature, right? The winds are at 7 miles per hour. Yeah. We're not expecting any precip.
Yeah, I mean, and I think we would expect that, right? If this game had 20-mile-an-hour winds, 25-mile-an-hour winds, this would be a slam dunk call for us here. There wouldn't be even really much of a discussion. I mean, we can definitely probably predict with a lot of confidence that QBs would be significantly impacted. Right. What I look at it is this too, is we haven't really seen Josh Allen in this call. I feel like with weather, there's a mental component, right? How confident is that QB playing in those conditions? Because some players, like an Aaron Rodgers, I was on an interview earlier this week talking about Aaron Rodgers. Sure, has he not played well in some weather-related games? Sure, but he's also played really well in some weather-related games as well. We talked about the Tennessee Titans game that they played at Green Bay last year, and he put up 40 points. So I don't know if Josh Allen's going to be impacted from a mental perspective here. And then there's the physics of the game, right? When you're talking 5 degrees, you're not be able to feel your hands as well. The ball you may not have as much of a grip. You may overthrow some receivers. It maybe just be a little bit tougher for him to make the completions. So I think with that adding up here, I think there's just statistically a higher probability of him not performing as well compared to his career means in this, and playing against Mike, to your point, playing against a really tough Patriots defense.
Yeah, the defense is gonna be tough here. So, Sean, I have some questions to ask you here. Actually, I have a question. How do you think players stay warm during these frigid types of games?
They have they have obviously heaters on the sidelines.
Yep.
And then they have their I'm not even sure technically the term for it, but they have something around their waist where they put their hands in to help to try to keep them warm.
Yeah, so there's a number of ways that they are trying to keep up, and I don't know if you saw the social media outlets. Bart Scott suggested to Josh Allen that he should try Viagra. To keep his heart flow and his blood pumping, but I don't know if that's a smart decision. I wouldn't recommend that, Alan. But there are some tricks and trade secrets here that these players are doing. One actually was kind of interesting. A lot of players rub Vaseline all over their arms and their hands and their face and their head to keep them a little bit insulated. And this is how they're showing off their arms on the national stage during the playoffs in cold weather. So that was interesting. There are some other things where they drink hot chocolate or chicken broth before the game. They're wearing many layers. They have hand warmers. Sean mentioned they have these like sideline heaters where they're like jet packs, just bursting flames out. So and they also have like heated benches, right? And helmet warmers. So there's a lot of different things that they can do to mitigate the severity of the cold in these cold weather impacts. But that being said, like in windy games, there's no way that they can avoid that, right? The wind's going to impact. They cannot mitigate those winds. So again, I'm interested to see what exactly plays out here. I do like the call from Sean that the upside of overproducing for both quarterbacks is not going to be there. They're not going to have their record-breaking games. It's just a much lower probability outcome of that. But That being said, I'm not fully convinced that they're going to struggle significantly based off of the cold weather. I think that the defenses, being elite level defenses, that is probably one where we'll see, if anything, struggling. But I don't think the cold weather alone is gonna cause that. But we'll find out.
Yeah, just kind of talking about Mac Jones as well. Because we've been talking about Josh Allen. Mac Jones, he struggled against the Buffalo Bills this year. I mean, one of those games obviously because of weather. But he's another one. I'm just not. He's a rookie QB. He's not played in conditions as cold before. Colder conditions, he has. Again, a very short career, but played below his career averages. So I'm
small sample.
QBs, I'm a little bit more hesitant with Mac Jones than I am with Josh Allen, but they're just going to be a little bit more limited here.
Well, last time Mac Jones was in Buffalo, he threw 3 pass attempts.
Yeah, 3 passing attempts.
Three passing attempts, and they won the game. I will put every dollar of my account into a bet saying that he's going to throw more than 3 passing attempts this game. The reason why he only threw 3 passing attempts in Buffalo this past year was because winds were greater than 30 miles per hour. And Bill Belichick completely changed the flow of the game to be ground heavy, and that was it. He will not do that again this game, and they're going to have to rely on Mac Jones this game to really help get the Patriots past the Buffalo Bills. They're not going to be able just to ride the running backs here, because Josh Allen will play better than he did in that 30-mile-per-hour game, as we saw him do in New England. Yeah. And I think that in order for the Patriots to win this game, they're going to have to see Mac Jones throw for more than 15 attempts.
Yeah, I mean, and kind of going into the receivers, in case we're wondering what's going on with the Buffalo and Patriots receivers. I will say, I mean, obviously with the Buffalo, your main highlight here is Stephon Diggs. He has struggled in cold weather games. Stephon Diggs has struggled. It's a very limited sample size, but he has struggled with only about 40 yards receiving per game with an 0.8 yard per catch, compared to his career averages of around 71 yards per game and 12.4 yards per reception. So, again, for me personally, I think we're going to see Allen maybe struggle a little bit here because the temperatures are going to be so cold, and maybe we see that translate over to Diggs. I'm so willing to play Diggs. He's going to get the looks in, in the red zone, but all the receiving options, I'm not super happy about.
It's interesting. I feel like the Patriots always have a great job at limiting the wide receiver one whenever they go against them, right? So we commonly see these other wide receiver 2-3 options, the tight ends, get more involved in the game. So I would be nervous like in the DFS format. I probably wouldn't be targeting Diggs at all. But though he is an elite level superstar, but I just feel like the Patriots know how to scheme out the top option in the passing game each and every week.
Yeah,
so that makes me a little nervous about the Diggs call.
Yeah, I mean, the last time they did play, he did get 4 receptions for 51 yards. That was the big windy game in December 6th. And Allen went 15 for 30 with 145 yards and a TD. And yeah, I mean, he did spread the ball up, but yeah, Diggs was the main recipient. But I think you're just kind of playing touchdown roulette here with these receivers.
Right.
Like who's going to get the TD? I personally still think that's going to be Stephon Diggs, but I don't know who the go-to is going to be in place of Diggs if you're not starting him.
Yeah, I get that. It's not a slam dunk call like if you're playing Diggs against the Jets, you know he's going to go off, but
yeah,
it's a tougher one with the matchup. How about the running backs here in the game? We know that Devin Singletary has been getting more volume as of late. He seems like he's taken over that lead dog role for the Buffalo Bills. And then on the other side of the ball, we have Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson both playing well. What are your thoughts in this one, Sean?
I mean, again, we don't know on these players playing specifically in this cold, in single digits cold. But historically, when we have looked at games in similar weather conditions, we see a significant increase in attempts and in rushing yards. So I think you're at least going to have the opportunity for these running backs to get the ball off him and maybe accumulate some yards to give a safe floor. Mike and I were talking about Devin Singletary, and yeah, 3 of his last 4 games, he's had 20-plus touches. But against the Patriots this year, he's actually struggled a little bit. The Patriots haven't been an overwhelming defense against the run. I still think they're going to rely on Singletary here. I think he's proven that he's the go-to guy. But, there is a point to be made. He has struggled against the Patriots a little bit this year.
Yeah, he's only had 12 and 10 attempts respectively, under 40 yards each game. The December 25th game, the most recent one, he got a touchdown, but he has not been playing super well against the Patriots. On the other side of the ball, Damian Harris, we were talking about him. Man has 15 touchdowns this year. I think that shocked us the most there. So against the Buffalo Bills rush defense, who have not been top of the line, let me just double check that before I state a statement. I just feel like they have had given up big games to opposing running backs throughout the season. I just feel, for me, I would feel a little bit more confident in playing like a Damian Harris over a Devin Singletary this week in DFS. That's just my feeling.
Yeah, I mean, I think both are going to get you volume. I mean, the question is it going to be Ramondre Stevenson? Is it going to be a Damian Harris? Last time we were playing again, this was a win game. This was not a game. But it was, I believe, Ramondre Stevenson who got the 24 carries and Damian Harris who got the 10 carries. So, that we anticipate it to be Damian Harris, but regardless, we do expect some rushing production from the running backs.
Okay, so Sean, is there anything else you'd like to comment on in this game, or do you think we covered it pretty well here?
No, I think that's pretty much it. Patriots wide receivers, I'm staying away from them. Maybe Jacoby Myers because you're going to get some volume there, but you don't have a lot of TD upside. And I think we've covered everything else pretty in depth.
All right, before we switch over to games, let's do a quick thing. Do you go over under 44 points here, and who do you have winning?
I'm going to say I am still saying the under. Just statistically, we see less points, and it's a pretty noticeable distribution shift. So I'm going to say the under, and I'm going to say Bills.
Okay. I'm going to take the Bills as well, and the over-under is tough for me. I'm going to go into the norm here and say the over, but I don't feel great about it. Okay. Let's switch over here, and let's bring up the southeastern U.S., and this is looking at wind gusts from the HRRR, the HER model, which is a high resolution weather model that we can use to look at some of these like surface parameters. And we're looking at the Tampa Bay region here with the gusts specifically. And this is showing gusts around 30 knots, which 30 knots is, you convert that to miles per hour. It's like, what, 30 times 1.15. You pretty much add in another 3 to 5 miles per hour to that. So it's like 30, 35 mile per hour gusts. And it's, if you look at the wind component here, it's coming directly from the Gulf of Mexico due west. You look at the stadium orientation for Raymond Jays. This is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers the stadium orientation. And if you zoom out here, you can see where we are. And in Florida, and we zoom back in, you can see how the stadium is oriented directly from north to south. So this is a direct crosswind event with 15 to 20 mile per hour sustained winds and gusts getting over 30 miles per hour. Now, Sean already mentioned, I'm going to go back to just looking at our beautiful faces here, that essentially Brady has shown his statistics, career statistics, in windy weather games to be nothing really significant, right? Maybe a slight overall production decline in windy games, but it's not a significant skew. That being said, there is a possible impact on Jalen Hurts in windy games. Sean, did you have any statistics on that you wanted to talk about?
For Jalen Hurts, yeah, like to your point, Tom Brady, we don't see anything crazy statistically there. With Jalen Hurts, we were looking at his stats, and they were pretty alarming in windy and or wet conditions. He was averaging like sub 40 yards per game passing with a QBR of around like 50. So like a really low QBR. A lot of touchdowns being scored. I don't know, from what we've seen so far, he's a young QB. It's his only second year in the league, but I'm not super hopeful based on what I'm seeing here. And if the winds do pick up and the gusts are sustained throughout the game, maybe he'll rely a little bit more on his legs. That'll give you a safe floor, kind of like a Josh Allen argument. But I'm a little bit concerned about his passing ability.
Yeah, in winning games where he has had to play in, it's a small sample size, but he averaged 35 yards per game. His career average is 140, so that's a significant reduction in his yards per game. The one thing that is unfortunate for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, because they were ready to make a Super Bowl run again, they do not have their star wide receiver, Chris Godwin. He is on IR. So this game is going to be played through Gronkowski, Mike Evans, Rashad Perriman's back, so he's going to get a big component of the passing game.
Yeah.
And the big question mark for the Bucs is whether or not Leonard Fournette will return. He has designated IR from return on the, so he can come back, but he's a game time decision as it stands now, so we're going to have to pay attention to that. But Ronald Jones is out in this game, so their two top running backs could be out again. And we're going to have to see another weird blend between Keyshawn Vaughn, Scotty Miller, and the ghost of Le'Veon Bell. So, it's unfortunate for Brady to see him, still trying his heart out and still playing at an elite level to lose some of his players, some of his core players. But I think he has enough here in this to win out, to squeeze out a win against the.
And let me tell you, if Leonard Fournette is playing, I'm playing him.
He's going to be huge. I am too.
I think they're going to rely on him. It's a little bit of a risky play with the hamstring, right? But
right.
I think they're not only going to use him in the rushing, I think they're going to use him in the passing as well. I think they're going to rely on Fournette. And he has shown that he can be that person. He can be that person in the game if they need him to be. If he's out, I'm definitely a little bit more skeptical. To your point, they still have Gronk. And Gronk, by the way, has his tricks are better in weather games with Tom Brady than they are not. That maybe just shows a little bit more confidence between Brady and Gronk in inclement weather. But you still have Mike Evans there, Rashad Perriman. So I still think they're going to be able to move the ball. I am most excited for Leonard Fournette because if the weather does get messy, maybe they do rush it a few more times, giving him a little bit more opportunity.
Yeah, and if he's out, then I think Scotty Miller is a sneaky play. Who is wide receiver, right? So he's wide receiver eligible, but he did get over 10 rush attempts last week. So you get a wide receiver who's getting who's getting more involved with that rushing game. It's a little bit more upside, and he's probably got a low DFS price. So it's one wide receiver that I'd target if Leonard Fournette is out. But if he's playing, as Sean mentioned, he should be your running back one in this week's DFS slate.
Yeah.
And we do know that Miles Sanders will be back. He is gonna play. He had surgery on his hand after week 16, but he's gonna wear some protection on his hand, so he should be getting the ball here. But that being said, with Jalen Hurts potentially having some significant struggles in this game, I'm a little worried about the entire Eagles offense, and I'm probably not going to be playing Devin, the rookie wide receiver. Why is he?
Devonta Smith.
Yeah, Devonta Smith. Thank you. I probably am not going to be targeting him in this game.
Yeah, I mean, if you are going to play a wide receiver, I'd be playing him. I still think he could get you a safe floor with some volume. I'm not excited about Miles Sanders here with a hand injury. I don't expect them to be passing him the ball a lot. And just having a lot of confidence in Sanders in this one. He's a very boom-bust play for me in this game. And he has a risk of a really low floor as well against a really tough Tampa defense, a really tough Tampa front rushing defense. So I'm not super excited about a lot of the options in Philadelphia in this one.
Do you take the over-under 45.5 in this one, Sean?
I was going to say over, but knowing if this weather picks up and Jalen Hurts struggles and playing against a tough Tampa defense, I'm going to take the under.
Yeah, I take the under too. Do you think the Buccaneers win here or the Eagles?
I still think it's going to be the Bucs. Yeah. Tom
I
Brady knows
agree.
how to win in the playoffs.
Yeah, it'll definitely be the Bucs in this one, but I do think the under is going to be manifested. I don't think the under is going to be coming from the Tampa Bay side. I think the point differential is going to be coming from the Eagles side due to the struggles in windy games for Jalen Hurts and Canadian offense. All right, so I think we covered the two games that we wanted to really focus on. Quick rundown again back here. We are looking at single-digit temperatures for game time in the Buffalo, New York tonight for the Patriots at Bills matchup. We talked about in depth how we expect this game, and the take-home message here for games where quarterbacks who play in really cold weather, it limits their upside potential. But that being said, we don't have a significant sample size on the number of games played in extreme cold weather, and specifically in this game, there's no wind. So when you have extreme cold weather with no wind, we don't expect as severe impacts as we would have if there were wind to be in this game. So that's one thing to consider. We both like the Buffalo Bills beating the Patriots in this game. Sean's taking the under at 44. I'm taking the over at 44. And then to summarize the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Eagles game, we both expect there could be some impacts in this one with the winds being as high as they're predicting, with some gusts in the 30-mile-per-hour range. We both like Tampa Bay Buccaneers winning this game, and we're not really big on Eagles offense because of Jalen Hurts' struggles and wind. Is that right or wrong, Sean?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. Just a few things to add. Like with the Tampa game, like just realize that this isn't a significant impact game. You know, if winds do get up there, we may see some impacts, but we don't expect this to be like the weather to dominate the game like we saw the wind game in Buffalo and New England earlier this year. So, you know, just realize that, you know, again, Tom Brady isn't really heavily impacted. We may see some impacts due to Jalen Hurts, but we don't expect this to be quite as big of a weather game.
Yeah. So you can follow us on social media at FFWeatherguys for any updates on Twitter. My handle is at MJ Ventures, and you can follow that as well. And we will provide any updates that we see accordingly throughout the day and into tomorrow. Sean will be writing his weekly blog here, which we'll make sure to issue that on our Twitter feed as well as our website. So pay attention to that when that comes alive. But thanks so much for joining the show today, guys. And hope there's some good football tonight and tomorrow to watch. Let's go Buffalo Bills.
Go Bills.
All right, guys. Take care. Have a nice weekend. Thanks.